Welcome to the Assistant Lab podcast, hosted by Victoria Ratton and Arnell Martin.
This podcast is dedicated to the executive assistant profession, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
We've created this podcast for the outliers, the linchpins, the assistants who are serious about their careers. This is a podcast for those who are preparing for the future today.
This is a space for no-nonsense content, benchmarking and tracking industry and world trends, as well as interesting interviews with exceptionally inspirational people. The goal here is to stimulate new ways of thinking and being in this profession.
So, on with the show.
Welcome again to another awe-inspiring interview with the Assistant Lab. Now, obviously, we wanted to do interviews with lots of assistants themselves, but sometimes it's great to look at some of the people behind the industry. And today we're delighted to welcome Rosemary Mclennan, who is the founder and owner of the Scottish PA Network. Rosemary has had an extraordinary life, it is fair to say, right from childhood up to owning her current company, which is the Scottish PA Network. We wanted people to get to know more about her because she's somebody that works ferociously hard behind the scenes for the profession, but so few people know her story. This is one you are definitely going to enjoy. Well, welcome to this next episode of the Assistant Lab. I am so excited, really excited to have our next guest, who is Rosemary Mclennan of the Scottish PA Network. Thank you so much for giving up your time for this. You know, I've been wanting to get you interviewed for a long time.
I know, I'm always trying to hide behind the scenes. So yeah, you finally got your own back, actually, Victoria. Thank you for having me on.
And I'm very excited to be here too. You know, I think this is going to be a very, very good discussion today. Wonderful to see you both online this afternoon. So without further ado, Rosemary, let's get straight into it. Tell us a little bit about what happened after you passed through the education system. What came next in your career?
Well, I graduated with a communication studies degree because since 8 years old, I had wanted to work in television and thought I want to work in production. And I was just fascinated by TV. So from the age of 8 till 21, when I graduated, I was focused on working in television. I graduated in Edinburgh and I thought, you know, I'm going to go to the TV companies, the BBC, the radio. And they all said to me, you've got no experience. We can't give you any opportunities because you've got no experience. So I thought, how the heck am I going to get experience? So as usual, I thought, well, the biggest, brightest place to head to is London, where all the TV headquarters were. So I made my dad, much to his stress, drive me through the night down to London to a really pokey, tiny little flat in Putney. And I'm sure he thought, what the heck is she doing? But I thought, somebody's got to give me a chance, even, you know, to make tea and coffee. I really want to work in production.
Yeah. So what happened? Well, how much did you get into it with production? Did you network to get those kind of roles? Because it's always been quite a tight, closed industry, isn't it? Even now, I think people would still say that.
Yeah, I mean, after my degree, I did typing and shorthand. I did T-line shorthand, which I found it was quite an intense course for a couple of months. I found that really stressful, I have to be honest. So I had that skill as well, because I realized if I wanted to get into production, you know, I would have to have various skills, basically, not just, it was no good to say, oh yes, look, I've done what everyone else has done and I've got a degree. That's not really enough. I wanted practical skills. So I went to I suppose they were called secretarial agencies in those days in Oxford Street. And they put me in a room in front of a typewriter and I was so nervous. And I was like typing away and I didn't do very well on how many words per minute. So they said, oh, we'll give you another chance. So by that stage, I was really sweating and I thought, God, I've got to get up to whatever, you know, minutes. So I managed it. And then they said, we've got you a job. I managed to get a job with Channel 4 TV.
Yeah.
As PA to the program manager, which was good. It was basically admin of, you know, where the tapes and cassettes move around from A to B.
So what happened? How long were you at Channel 4?
I was at Channel 4 for, I'm trying to think. I think it wasn't quite a year before my boss, they then moved to this new company, which was B Sky B, which is Sky now.
Yeah.
So it was in the Marco Polo building in London. And everyone thought, what on earth, why would you stick something on the side of your house and it's going to suddenly give you TV channels? So she moved there and then I went with her. I have to say, when I started working with her at Channel 4, she was great, got on really well with her, but she did say to the temp agency that I was really naive, that I didn't really understand how in and out boxes worked for, you know, putting your letters in and out, your paperwork, your memos. So actually I really was completely clueless, but she kind of took me under her wing. And yeah, so I do think I didn't even know what an in and out box was, hardly. I didn't know how to use anything.
But often isn't, when you get thrown into the deep end, you learn quick, right? It's not like you had all the theory, you had to kind of figure it out, and those lessons tend to stick.
Yeah, I mean, let's say these weren't complicated lessons that I was learning. So, I mean, it's absolutely no point in saying, whoopie-doo, I passed my degree, but I don't know how to turn on my computer or use an in and out box. So actually it was the practical things that really you needed to get on in the world.
And you know, you make such a good point, Rosemary. I often have executives who are recruiting, and then they're always looking for a degree, and then they'll disregard the assistant who submits a CV who's got experience. And I often say to them, you know what, just because they have a degree doesn't mean they're going to get the job done for you. You're going to have a long onboarding period. So, you know, ideally you would like a candidate with both, but if I had to pick one, I would definitely pick experience every day of the week. And we earn the experience that we have. You know, it's not something that you can cheat your way into. If you've got that experience, it does count. So, you know, it's a good point that you make.
Yeah, and I do think it's, you know, when I came through the education system, it was seen as essential, really, that you had your HND or your degree or your further education, because we were taught, you know, if you don't have that, you know, what if you don't get a job at all? So, I mean, we really were, I suppose, threatened. You know, it was quite scary, really.
It was kind of this is the only way to go, and you have to have this. So yeah, that makes complete sense.
So how long were you at Sky for?
Ended up at Sky for 5 years, which I absolutely loved. Yeah, and Sky Sports, I absolutely loved that. The hours were horrendous, and it was like being, I suppose, someone on shifts, but with no pattern whatsoever. So you could finish at, you know, you could go in at 5 o'clock on a Sunday morning to do your Soccer Sunday goals program, but the night before you might have been working on cricket that was a live feed from Australia, and you'd been sitting in the studio for maybe, I don't know, you could be sitting for 16, 18 hours. So it wasn't for people who were faint-hearted in terms of the hours that you put in. The pay was really bad, but, you know, I've always believed that you should do something that you're absolutely passionate about.
Definitely. So what happened after Sky? Did you continue your career in London, or?
Yeah, I did actually. I took a break for a few months to have a think about what I wanted to do. And then I thought, right, I still want to work in TV. So I applied to work at the South Bank show with Melvyn Bragg.
Ah, okay,
Yeah. So this was the polar opposite. This was, just rock up at 10 a.m. And I thought, you know, take your time with everything. We take like a year or two to work on a program, rather than at Sky, you might have 5 news bulletins in a day. So this was the polar opposite. So I thought, this is quite good, really. But I mean, I did find it slightly frustrating because they took so long to do anything.
Yeah.
Different pace.
Different pace and different people that you're working with. You're working with arts and music and film producers, and it was very slow and pensive, you know, whereas in sports, or sometimes I worked a little bit in Sky News, you wouldn't really have time to think twice because it was so fast paced.
And then what happened? How long were you in that role for?
A couple of years, and I loved that. Melvin Bragg was a really incredible boss, so I was very, very lucky. You know, people ask me about him. What was it like to work with him? I couldn't rate him highly enough. Was a production assistant on the Dennis Potter movies, some of the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which was a Kenneth Branagh film that was on recently. So I was on some of the really good South Bank shows. We did Kiri Te Kanawa's 50th birthday at the Royal Albert Hall. Oh, wow. So that was quite stressful because I was, as a production assistant, they said, oh, Rosemary, you've done live programs, you can do this. Sit in the outside broadcast truck, and you had to count the music beats. Now, I am musical, but I'm not a music guru by any stretch of imagination. So I'm counting this going 1 on 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, and I thought, if anyone's relying on me for the drums or the trombone to come in at the right time, I'm going to potentially really mess up Kiri Te Kanawa's 50th birthday at the Albert Hall. So
no pressure.
I didn't really sleep very well at that time.
I wouldn't have done either, to be fair. I've gone through a lot of high stress situations in my career, but I think counting those beats would have finished me off.
Yeah, no, I did. I was sure like the bass drum was probably going to boom at the wrong time, but luckily they had a very good producer and director, so they really took charge. But I thought, if they're really relying 100% on me, there's going to be a few errors, a few re-records like today probably.
So when did you come out of production? Did you carry your career in that afterwards, or did it get
I didn't, because I kind of had lived in London for 7 years and I wanted to come back to Scotland and then potentially go overseas, because I'd lived in about 15 countries overseas growing up. So I thought, you know, I want to live in the sunshine. That's worked out well, because now I live in the north of Scotland. That has not worked out very well. So,
bless.
I lived all over Middle East and Africa growing up, because my dad was a football coach. So I thought, right, you know, I would quite like to go and live overseas. And then it came to Scotland and I've never left. So, but I'm happy. I'm happy in the pouring rain.
Yeah, I'll have to send you some sunshine via courier or something. But you know, something that I didn't know about Rosemary, she spent some of her childhood in Zimbabwe, which is my closest neighbor geographically. So you know, we're almost from the same neck of the woods.
Yeah, we lived I lived there for 5 years growing up. And we loved it, actually. So my dad worked mainly for FIFA, so he coached countries at soccer. So I said, people used to say growing up, oh, so you've lived in all these places. Is your dad in the Foreign Office or the Army or something really prestigious? And I would say, no, he was a footballer. So, you know, you never, if you didn't score the goal, you were chucked out. And then mum and dad would say, right, we're moving. And I would say, where are we going now? Well, we're not really sure. So you're like dragged around with no security.
Well, you know, at the end of the day, you know, if you look at soccer in Africa, it is a religion. So I'm sure there was no shortage of jobs in Africa for a football coach.
No, and it was really, you know, whether it was, he traveled a lot in Ivory Coast and African Nations Cup, you know, the talent, and he always said that Africa had the best natural talent in the world. And that was really, you know, a long time ago.
And then, so you moved home to Scotland. What happened? Did you continue your production career, or did you go into something else?
No, I decided, because I love sport, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And then I was waiting for a visa for overseas, but it took about 8 months. And I thought this might never happen. So I worked for a golf tour company. And then after that worked for golf resort. So really in sales, which I thought, I don't know how to sell a peanut, but I thought I'm talking about what I love. So I love the sport. So there was golf and mainly golf, actually, golf. So I worked for, I suppose, some of the best golf resorts in the world.
Well, you can name drop here.
Okay, yeah. Well, I worked for Carnoustie, and then I worked 5 years at Fairmont St Andrews, and then a few years
Fantastic.
for the Old Course Hotel, which both were owned by Americans. And I loved working for private owners because they were so positive, and you could go to them and say, I've had an idea, or I've seen this. And you could go straight to them, and there was no bureaucracy. They would say, that's good, or that's rubbish. Let's go for it.
Those are good environments. And, you know, something that comes through to me is sport has been a big thing in your life. Sport has shaped and moved a lot of the pieces on the board.
Yeah, sport is really what I grew up with. You know, when you get annoyed at the crowds of football on a Saturday afternoon, or the racing, the horse racing, I literally grew up with that in my ears from my mum and my dad. Since I can remember, it was always that in my ears.
So how did it progress to the PA Forum in Scotland?
Really, it happened itself, but by accident as well. So when I was working for Fairmont and the Old Course, you know, you had clients, a lot of UK clients. So it could be an MD, it could be an HR director wanting an incentive for their staff. It could be someone saying, a lot of CEOs used to phone me and say, oh, I've not organized my wife's birthday present or my son's party, you know, help me. So they started phoning me, and I guess I got a reputation. They would say, phone Rosemary, she'll know someone who knows someone about whether it's like, you know, pink chair covers or something for your grandmother. And one day I had 10 phone calls asking me for things that were nothing to do with my day job. And I thought, this is actually getting a little bit out of control.
Yeah.
And I'm not 118, and I'm certainly not getting the fees, you know, for being a 118. Everybody's concierge, really. So I thought, after so long in hotels, I thought I really want to work for myself. So I left my job on the Friday and started the PA network on the Monday. And I had some savings, so I thought, right, I'll organize it all for the next 4 or 5 months, and then have a launch party, which I did. And all the PAs and office managers, support staff said, oh, you know, we'll support you. And on the other half of the coin, a lot of the hotels and businesses, I suppose, whether it's chauffeur drives, they said, we'll support you. So I thought, I'm really just going to be a go-between person.
A connector. And, you know, I think that is such an important part of the role of a good network, is connecting people, whether it's connecting your members or connecting your members with good suppliers, good venues. I think that's such an important part of it. And like you said, it found you. This new episode found you.
It found me. And I have to say, what was good is that some companies were getting charged different things by the same suppliers. And I know people get maybe fed up talking about suppliers, but actually from an ethical standpoint, it was good because it created transparency. So if you wanted something and someone would say, well, you know, that's going to be another £100 for you, then I'm charging Victoria. That was not allowed to happen under my watch. So it was good.
So how long's the network been going now? Because it's been around for a while, hasn't it?
Yes, it's 2010 actually, which is quite scary to think.
Unbelievable.
How old I'm getting.
How old we're all getting. Not through the pandemic.
Well, I'll tell you something funny. When I did set it up, my mum at her golf course in Scotland, so my dad's not alive anymore, and she said, oh, Rosemary's starting her own business. So I suppose she was probably thinking, oh, I'm really proud of her. But she was also thinking, I think she's lost the plot. But she told all her ladies at the golf club that I did something to do with computers. Something to do with computers. So that's because I'd said I was creating a website. So then all of her friends were saying, oh, do you think Rosemary could have a look at my computer? Because I can't find the Google, or I've got a zigzag stripe across my laptop. And I said, Mum, I do not fix computers. So there was, a
little communication breakdown, just ever so slightly.
Yeah, ever so slightly. It took my family a long time to get their head around it.
Yeah, well, I want to ask you now, coming back to the network, in the time that you've set up, what do you, if you think back and you look to the existence of the network and the evolution, what do you see right now as some of the challenges?
Challenges would be funding for conferences and events. Generally, my events are free unless I have like a learning day, which you've been part of, both of you, or a conference where, obviously I want to pay the speakers their full fee. I don't want to go to a speaker and say, give me a discount or speak for free. I don't want to do that. So there would be costs there, and costs with hotels and meals and so on for the delegates. So funding for professional development for the PA profession is still a challenge.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And every time there's an economic downturn, it gets obviously used as an excuse by companies and HR directors that the first thing they shut purse on is L&D and stuff, which is really frustrating, because if you continued investing into your stuff, they might come up with the next idea or the project that gets everyone working smarter, not harder, and more productive.
And if I look at what the company I used to work for spent on executive level development, if they just spent 5% on the people who are directly supporting those executives, they could absolutely have better results without the massive budgets. But to me, it never made sense. In the 12 years I worked for the company, they did not pay 1 cent towards my development. And actually, if you are looking at the person, that right-hand person, and you are upskilling them, there's an immediate benefit to that executive. And the thinking just never made sense to me.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot. Executives going on these courses and sort of middle management upwards, and they would get, it would be £10,000 to go on this course. They didn't bat an eyelid, and that was, that could be 10, 15 years ago. So I think it's pretty poor that the PA profession isn't supported by the organizations. I think it's shocking, actually.
Yeah.
And especially because of the proximity to that leader, especially because you are that closest person and you actually function as overflow, as an extra brain, as a timekeeper, as a sanity checker. You are very directly involved with that person. So to me, it would make sense to invest in that person who is that close. So, and like you say, the amounts are absolutely exorbitant when you look at it. And, a percentage of that could be used so much better.
I totally agree, Anna.
Yeah. It's there's always controversy on these, a little bit of controversy on these shows. I'm going to be a little bit controversial now.
This is what we do.
Yes, it is. But there is the other side of it. And I know, obviously, running EPAA, I have an inbox full of emails asking for stuff for free constantly. And some of that will be because the assistants genuinely have put a business case together. They've tried their hardest. They can't get anything. They can't afford to self-fund. But then there's the other side of the PA industry that I have to explain to some PAs, not all, that when we put on like learning and development days, like Rosemary said, there are costs attached to it. Like, you can't ask a trainer or presenter to come and do it for free. Sometimes you get away with that, but it shouldn't be a constant thing, and it's definitely not an ethical way to do business. But there are kind of costs attached, and it's like, we want to give you the very best training day at the lowest price that we can possibly get away with, but we can't do everything for free. And there is a little bit of this freebie mindset in this industry at times.
I agree at times. And I think it comes from, as a trainer myself, I've experienced it where I'm invited to speak and the expectation is you come over and you do it for nothing. But there are also expenses on my end, and like you say, from a delegate point of view, where people will come to you and say, oh, can you do X for free? And I think, I also need to eat. I need to put bread on the table. So like you say, that there is a bit of that kind of mindset on both sides.
I think also, if you are ethical and you are paying your speakers, I would hope that the PAs or the members would realize that they can trust you, that you are, trust that you are giving the best price. I've really taken a hit myself sometimes on the costs, which people don't see that, but you are taking a risk booking speakers and then thinking, gosh, I've got to sell tickets, but I don't want to pass on a huge cost. Sometimes that can result in a minus that you fund yourself. And then sometimes, like Victoria said, you are getting asked, oh, well, can I get it cheaper? And, you're already doing it maybe 3, 4, 5 times cheaper than it would be elsewhere in the marketplace for specific speakers.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, I mean, coming on to a question I was perhaps going to ask later, but I'll do it now. But the Scottish PAs are actually really, really lucky because they don't have to pay for membership of your network. What was the thinking around that when you were setting up?
I suppose I'd work with PAs, EAs, office managers, a lot of support staff over the years before I set the network up. And I knew that their salaries range from very, really good salaries with a lot of benefits to others who really would struggle financially, and they were on a very, very low salary. So I didn't want it to be a network that wasn't accessible. I suppose people always use that word, but I thought if I was in that position, I wouldn't want to be excluded from opportunities. And really, I've never wanted it to be a paid network because that's not what I would want for myself. If my gas bill becomes like £5,000 a month, then things might be slightly different. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. Even then, I think, you need to look at ways of funding the network. And it's just a personal wish of mine that it is a free network.
Yeah, I wish I could run a national body completely for free. Well, I have done that during COVID, which is insanity, part of insanity on my end. But yeah, we tried to help as many people as possible. But yeah, like you were saying, Rosemary, I took a very personal hit for doing that. And it is difficult. And even though assistants work within businesses and across sectors, sometimes some don't fully understand the full scale of the costs that go into running networks, associations and things like that, and
the amount of work.
It's a lot of work.
I think the people sometimes underestimate what happens behind the scenes. Now, I'm privileged to know both of you, and I get a glimpse behind the scenes, so I think people sometimes don't realize how much really goes into it.
No, and how much strong coffee we have to have.
Of course, gallons and gallons. Now, Rosemary, the industry can be gimmicky at times, and I think sometimes that kind of influences the perception of the profession and how seriously we get taken. So any general thoughts around that? The stuff I'm talking about, the superhero and assistants or magicians and psychic, all that gimmicky.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't want to set myself up to be sort of anything special in case, I might not live up to it either. So I always thought, if I look back at my website from way back in 2010, I always thought I need to have business colors, business branding, so that if I was a business wanting to work with the network, I would think, do you know what, that looks good, that looks like a serious business, it doesn't look like something
Mickey
more
Mouse.
fickle and light. And also, actually, some of the brands that I work with, I've had to jump through hoops. One company, I had to go through their head office in Germany. It took months because they have to approve the look of your branding and how you're portraying yourself, and it has to fit with their brand. So I find that a lot of the mid to higher brands, they will look at how you are promoting yourself.
Absolutely.
And how professional you come across.
And
I think that there's a lesson beyond the network here. If you look at assistants working in the profession, same rules apply. If I'm presenting myself as gimmicky or flaky or the flavor of the month, how seriously am I going to be taken? We all have the discussions regularly where people say, people people in the industry don't respect us, or people in business don't respect us. But sometimes I look at what's being put out and what I'm experiencing, and then I think, okay, that makes sense. That's why you don't have that respect, because you're not positioning yourself as a serious person. So I think there's a lesson beyond just the website and the branding of your network. I think there's a personal lesson there too.
Yes, and I think that is not, as you say, that's not specific to the PA profession. If I was in a completely different job, when I was at Sky, actually, I gave myself a target. I thought, you know what, there's no L&D budget for me. I'm a production assistant. There's no training for me. So each year, for 5 years in a row, I gave myself the target of getting the MD or the CEO of my departments to give me up to £1,000 worth of investment in a course that I would like to do, which at that time was a lot of money. It'd probably be equivalent to at least £2,500 a year. And they would say to me, because I did hassle them and say, I want to do this, I want to do this. So I think they got a bit fed up of me. They knew I wasn't going away. So each year I did a different course, and it was sometimes a week-long course. I did a journalism course, I did a production course at London Polytechnic. So I picked the course and I would go to them and say, can you approve this? And I prided myself that over those 5 years, I got investment every single year, but I didn't see anyone else doing that. I was just determined to get
Rosemary,
something.
I don't think it was just determination. I think if your team sees that you're adding value, they are quite willing to invest. So if you make a good business case, you can explain why you want it, what you want, but also you have performed throughout the year. Then that request becomes so much easier.
Yes, I agree. And some PAs have come to me and said, oh, I'd really like to do this or that, you know, not with my network, but they were wanting to do different courses or buy something. And sometimes it was, you know, I'm talking less than £100 for a year for something. And I said, I really would be questioning your bosses that if they think that you're not worth £50 a year or £100 a year, then, you know, you've got to have
in the right place.
You've got to have some serious conversations with them.
Yeah. And what's even more scary is the people who don't even ask. No, my boss will never approve that. Actually, if you don't ask, you have your default no. But I think sometimes it's also that fear, that hesitancy to have the discussion. You know, often I find that in my own experience, people just say, I say, well, have you asked? No, I haven't. Okay, but now how do you know you're not going to get it approved? You are assuming you won't get it approved.
Yeah, it's a piece of work. It's clearly wrapped into confidence as well that needs to pick up over the coming years, because I think that's part of holding back the profession moving forward. These people not asking and therefore not presenting themselves as a professional, not thinking of themselves as a profession in their own right. And it's sad we've still got these problems going on now. Frustrating as well for a lot of people. But I want to kind of circle back to your network. Your network is actually for an entire country, Scotland, and it's pretty big landmass wise. How do you make it work? Where is it focused? I mean, I know you very well, but for anybody that ends up listening around the world that doesn't really know much about Scotland, I mean, it's big, isn't it, land wise?
Okay, for a start, Scotland's not just somewhere north of London. So I do get asked things like that, especially from sometimes people that haven't maybe been to the UK. They say, oh, is that North London or North England? I was like, no, it's a whole actual country.
Yeah.
It's a very big landmass. You'd have a population that's really spread around the country and in the Highlands and Islands, and also in the cities. The main city groups would be Edinburgh, Glasgow and Aberdeen. And then you've got smaller groups in Dundee, Perth, Stirling, Inverness. And I do actually have PAs in Shetland. I've been trying to get them to come to the mainland.
Wow. I wondered if there was PAs on the Shetlands.
Yeah, Shetlands. the council up there is the main employer, and then you've got PAs on the Western Islands, so they can work for anything from NHS to some of the main whiskey distilleries.
Mm. Good gig if you can get it.
Yeah. I think I fear that could be a bad gig for me ultimately. Though. So do you focus because you have a few key showcases every year, which are a highlight, aren't they, for the Scottish PAs? They absolutely love coming to them.
Yeah, the showcase. Sorry, I've interrupted you, Vic.
No, it's fine. But they happen. Is it spring and autumn? Isn't it? You tend to do the showcase events.
Yes, and that's really, it's not for everyone, but if someone wants to come to an event over 3 hours, meet their colleagues, have a bit of a relaxing time, and just get some supplier contacts under one roof. You're working smart over 3 hours. You might want to go out to dinner with some of your PA friends afterwards. So it's very informal. I have also brought up some of our PA contacts from London. They've come up and they've loved their trips up to Scotland. So we've built some really nice relationships since 2015, really, from London, between London and Scotland. So that's worked really nicely, and we've built up a lot of trust in that network too.
Yeah.
And when it comes to these supplier events or reaching out to your peer group for a recommendation, I trust another EA much more than I trust Google. I'm sorry. I can check Google. We can all have access to that. But if I can phone somebody up and say, have you used these people? Do you recommend them? That's a much better recommendation. So I think just for that trust in a supplier, if it's coming through a network and you've worked with them for years, I think there's a level built in there where you feel this is somebody we can trust because they've been part of our family for a time, So I think that's also a great benefit.
Yeah, and it's not just hotels. Recently, quite a few of the companies have started using a really amazing recycling company, and they have saved a lot of money for their company. They've changed how they are recycling paper and all their waste. So actually, it's not just a tick box. Yeah, I'm ticking the CSR or the green box. You actually can make good savings, and you're actually improving your process and improving your footprint, improving your recycling, whatever it might be. It's not just a question of going out for
but it also makes business sense. It's not just let's hug the bunnies. There is business sense behind it. And like you said, I think an important part of what we all need to start thinking about is how to work sensibly with resources. Whether this is the paper that you're printing on, or whether these are your own energy reserves. We've got to start looking at resources not as completely infinite. So I think it does make sense on a broader scale as well.
Yes, it does. And as I said, it might be that PAs are looking for training, for instance. So I get a lot of requests for that. Can you recommend someone for training courses? Or it could be for the PA group, it could be for executives, it could be for their HR team. So it's not just limited to the PAs within departments. It's a wider issue across the company.
And like you mentioned, it's not just hotels. It's a variety of suppliers. It's again, that making connections between people.
It's really relationships, and then people move companies. And it's seeing those relationships go on, and then people helping other people, because that's the main passion behind what I love doing. Is I love people. I love, I love the suppliers, but I love the PAs. I love to know, how's your dog? How's your grandmother? I actually really do care about people, because that's what makes my world go round, and it's what gives you fulfillment in life.
And clearly one of the reasons the Scottish PA network's been so successful and has been around for such a long time as well. But that brings me on to another question, actually, which rather very excitingly, you launched the Scottish PA Awards. Was it 4 years ago or 5?
Now, Victoria, you launched it with me in 2015. So it was actually all that time ago, because we've lost the last few years, haven't
I
we?
know, and that's why I keep getting thrown, because I'm trying to backtrack beyond past pre-COVID, and I've got like memory fog.
My body clock also stopped in 2020. So.
But it was really exciting, but it was your idea, and I was just there to support it and what have you. But it's become really, I mean, it's a key award, isn't it, in Scotland now, and you're bringing it back again next year?
Yes, actually, I could never have set it up without you, Victoria. Now I know you're going to be annoyed at me, but actually I thought, oh my goodness, what's the agenda going to be like? How long do you have for this? I knew how long you had for coffee break and lunch, but in between, Victoria was the guru at putting the program together, and you got me some great people as well to support on the day, and that was a conference and awards during the daytime.
Yeah.
So that was the very first one, and I think we had maybe 3 categories, and it grew to 7 categories just before lockdown. We're probably pulling it back to 5 core categories for March. It's 22nd of March 2023 that it's coming back as an evening event.
Amazing.
Yeah, really exciting. And could you did it one year, the first year of lockdown, didn't you? Well, it was already penciled in the diary as a face-to-face event, but then turned it virtual.
Turned it virtual, which was really scary because I suddenly realized how much the budget would be. I thought, I can't have the professional presenter that I normally have, so I thought I'm going to have to do it myself. So I was standing on a rooftop with the wind blowing and everything in Edinburgh. And I thought, oh my goodness. And then we had to beam live to 4 locations where the sponsors were announcing and presenting each category. But when I say beam live, I think we just had sort of cameraman and iPads and things. And it was a bit stressful. I'm amazed that it didn't conk out halfway through.
Honestly,
and steep learning curve for everybody, right? Those first online events, people don't realize that, you know, as an organizer, as a speaker, how much stress there is behind the scenes. Just, you know what you're doing, but suddenly it's this new platform in a completely new time and place. So I feel you on that one.
Well, I find face-to-face events, and Rosemary and I have had a discussion about this before, but face-to-face events, I mean, I've organised and I've spoken at PA conferences and done all my work events being a PA as well, and I've had all sorts go wrong on my stages. I've had my CEO literally trip up over himself and dive off stage. I've had speakers running off stage to be sick and coming back okay, someone leaving their microphone on as they're going to the toilet. I mean, literally I've had everything's happened at my events over the last 20 years in my career and the PA stuff. But normally you can sort of jump on stage if you're the chair and just keep chivying stuff along.
Just keep it going.
If you've got a good chair and we'll just come back, even if there's a tech problem, it'll be like, okay folks, we'll just get some coffee brought in. But when I did EPAA's national conference, it was all going really well up until that afternoon, and I just dropped off. There was a power cut round here, so I was missing from my own conference for 7 minutes. But fortunately, I'd briefed the panel so well, and one of my board members of EPAA was on the panel, and I texted her saying, power cut, just keep going. You know what to do. She's known me long enough. And so then I just sort of popped back up, and honestly, my heart beat, if I'd have been wearing my Fitbit that day, it would have been racing, because I had no control over it. I can control a face-to-face event to a degree, but I can't with virtual, can you?
But I must tell you, power cuts. I was at an event in Ghana and we were in a hotel, and literally the power went off in the morning and didn't come on again. So doing a full day's worth of training, if you know what you're doing and you've done it before, you can get through a full day, but literally no tech for the day. So yes, you know, you've got to plan for those contingencies, but managing it live is so much easier. You know, you can see what's happening, you can see people's reactions. I think the other thing about online anything is that most of the time people have their cameras off, so you can't see the reaction. You don't know if that person's camera is off and they're sitting watching Netflix, you know. So it is kind of, it's much more energy intensive, and you do tend to overthink and kind of worst case scenario more because you can't see what people are doing.
At least you maybe didn't remember at the start of when we all discovered what Zoom was, and we didn't even know what WFH meant, and it was all this new tech. And then do you remember that person, all the outtakes, and that one person turned themselves into potato on the Zoom call?
The cat. The cat.
Oh my God, if I turned myself into a spud, that would have been, yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the one with the lawyer. They're presenting in court, and he had a cat filter on. His kid was using his Zoom, and he didn't realize, so he went through this entire argument, very serious court case, as a cat. And then
he did try and blame it on his assistant initially.
on his assistant.
Yeah, he tried to blame it on his assistant, and I was like, that is very poor show.
I think that is karma. That is exactly why he ended up as a cat in the first place.
So
I think but the good thing was when people became more accepting of sort of noises in the background and things, and because I live in the countryside, I've got these cockerels plural, but one of them in particular comes and sits on the window behind me when I'm doing my Zoom calls or my Teams calls, and he just crows away, and it's so loud. So I had to warn someone the other day, and they said, well, that's a new one. You know, I've heard of babies and cats and dogs, and now it's a blooming cockerel.
Well,
but like you say, at least everyone's kind of gotten to grips with this is real life, folks.
Although I think Rossi's snoring does still surprise some people sometimes.
Because it does sound like a fat middle-aged man. When you see the picture of the dog and you hear the snore, you know, there's a bit of cognitive dissonance. You're not sure it can make that sound.
Yeah. So, I mean, in essence, you'll be looking forward to getting back the awards face-to-face next year.
Yes, and I'm really excited because it's a great new venue. Completely changed the style of it as well. It's not going to be a sit-down dinner for 10. It's going to be an evening, couple of hours, more like a celebration. So it's going to be drinks, canapes, plenty of mingling. We've got a new venue that's opening. It's high up, overlooking the River Clyde in Glasgow.
Wow.
Very, very contemporary, because just felt after the last few years, wouldn't it be nice to have a celebration instead of something more formal and traditional, like the 3-course sit down, you know,
that sounds
dinner.
Amazing. Now, Rosemary, for those who are listening or watching who don't know how to enter, I'm a Scottish PA. I know nothing about these awards. You know, tell us a little bit about how you would enter, where you would get the information.
So there will be an upgraded website. It's www.scottishpaawards.com. So it's got its standalone website. It is currently getting updated because obviously the last few years has been a bit of a dead as a dodo, that website. But you could actually, it goes back to 2015. You can see the gallery of all the winners. You can see you on there, Victoria.
In my younger days.
In my younger days. I actually think
before COVID.
Yes. I think we need a couple of years taken off our passport age.
Absolutely. If you haven't used the years, they shouldn't be on my account. So I want to be 40 again because I haven't used the last 3 years. That's, you know, that's my story. I'm sticking with it. Yeah.
So yes, it'd be very easy to enter. I would imagine by the middle of September, we're just getting new artwork uploaded. By middle of September, we will let everyone know when that website's live. It's live at the moment, but when it's upgraded with the links for entering for next year.
And tell me, can people self-nominate or must they be nominated? What is that? How does that work?
Either or.
Okay.
I would like to see bosses get behind their teams, whether it's HR directors, managers, direct reports. You know, I really would like to see more bosses nominate either their teams or individuals.
And you've hit on a point there, which, I mean, I've judged a lot of awards in the UK over the years, a lot. And I was involved when I was at Hayes with the Hayes Times newspaper PA of the Year award, which used to be the most prestigious national award in the country, obviously being with the Times. And one of the things I noticed around then, and I was more logistical behind the scenes of that, but a lot of the nominations actually came from bosses themselves, and I think that's why at the time it was a good time with the Times, because it was the bosses predominantly reading that newspaper and then nominating. And then other awards I'd been involved in over the years, because obviously the Times creme supplement shut down during the recession, so those awards went, and I have been involved in a lot of awards. And you know what, I've got no problem with PAs tooting their own horns, self-nominating, but I do, it's something, you know, Rosemary's hit on there. I do not think enough bosses are getting off their backsides and doing it, and it should, the split on self-nominations versus boss, there should be more bosses nominating.
Agreed.
I think it's really quite disappointing, given what this profession's delivered to British businesses and organisations over the last decade, that, you know, PAs, to get any sort of recognition or to be rewarded in that way, they're having to do that themselves.
Yeah.
So I'm 100% behind Rosemary with that. I think it is high time that we start getting more company boss nominations for their assistants now. Oh, a showstopper there.
I know, I don't know. My brain stopped for a minute.
Well, there's been some debates on LinkedIn about it over the past, and PA saying, well, I'm happy self-nominated. I'm not there to take that away from you, but in order to challenge perception, you know, things that need to move the profession along, the bosses, employers have got to start getting involved.
And you know what's sad to me, Vic, is they know these people are adding the value.
Yeah.
They know they are experiencing it hands-on. It would be nice, but it's like those bosses. They'll tell everyone except you what a good job you're doing. Okay. And I think that's also something, you know, we always laugh about it. I'll meet somebody in the corridor and the person will say, you know, your boss thinks you're the best. And I think to myself, I wish my boss would just say that to me once to my face. You know, it's nice, you know, hearing this gossip about you, which is positive, but it would be nice to just get that affirmation face to face. And I think this is kind of the same thing, where you say to the world, I think this person is special. They add value to me. I couldn't do what I do without them. And it's nice to have that from somebody that you work that closely with.
And you know what, Nell, that brings me and my thought process back to the perception piece. So when I put on the awards, the sponsorship money was put entirely back into aiming to produce, you know, high quality awards, having partners. For instance, we've still secured Hayes again just now for next year, which is amazing. They've stuck with us for all those years. So you've got a FTSE 250 company there. I'm not saying, look, I'm working with, you know, someone who's just, you know, the corner of my street. You know, we're talking about, you know, an international organization, but it's also down to the branding of the website, how your judging process works. You know, is it robust or is it just a token process? You know, that is all very, very important.
Of course it is. It really is. Well, I mean, we'll definitely, when you open the nominations, we'll shout loud and proud, won't we, about it, and try and tag in loads of Scottish businesses and bosses, and get them to nominate. I mean, listen, there is the other side of it. There are a few bosses who have gone ahead without their assistants' knowledge and nominated them for various awards, and then the assistants get told out of the blue, you've made it to the shortlist, and they're like, oh no, I don't want to, get me out of it. And so, you know, some assistants have been put forward and they've declined and wanted to come out of the process. That's fine. But that, I mean, that's a minority, definitely, in awards processes that I've seen over the years.
I think it would be nice if bosses and HR got behind the nominations, because then you've not got a situation where, you know, I've had some PAs have nominated themselves and then the company have been annoyed because they've kind of thought, why have you done that? You didn't tell HR. And with the best will in the world, that person had done a really good job. But then the company got annoyed, or whoever their bosses were got annoyed that they'd gone and done that without their prior knowledge. So maybe it is just a case of how you approach it and how the communication works internally as well.
Yeah.
To get the support.
Well, you've just reminded me of an incident I had as a judge on some awards over here. This was pre-COVID, and someone senior in the organisation contacted me. I don't know why they cherry-picked me out the judging panel of 5, but I got the email saying, how on earth has my colleague made it to the final 5? You have no idea how much trouble she's caused, and we most certainly wouldn't have nominated, said, why don't you do background checking? I mean, they're not my awards, I'm a judge. You know, there's only so much you can do on terms of checking, but in their opinion, I mean, who knows, there's 2 sides to every story, and frankly it was none of my business, and I kind of suggested they take it up with the awards people who own the awards, but there is that part of it as well. You know, the company, like Rosemary said, they get upset.
And also, Vic, sometimes your boss doesn't want you to get that award because they know that's great on your CV. The next employer is going to love that, and the chances of you getting headhunted, that becomes so much better. So I think sometimes there's a level of that as well.
Yeah, definitely. There was with the Hayes Times. There was a bit of a standing joke with the Hayes PA Sec MD at the time, when, you know, he used to sort of go out and try and chivvy up the nominations. Not that you had to do a huge amount of chivying with the Times, but he had a certain level of contact, and you say, look, we're doing this with the Times again. And they'd say there's absolutely no way, because then I'll have to find a new assistant. Because some of those winners, they went, you know, they had a lot of publicity in a national newspaper. They were then part of what was the Times secretarial exhibition every year. They were then asked to speak at PA events and roadshows around the country. So there was a lot. It was there for the taking if you were a winner or runner-up to have all that. So yeah, there was definitely that fear factor. I can't nominate my PA. I'm not prepared to lose them.
That's it.
I also think there is now that awards, I might be controversial now, awards aren't held in the highest esteem in which they once were, because the awards are not for everybody. Some people might win an award and it might not necessarily benefit their career for various reasons. So I understand that, you know, times have changed, and just because you're on the pedestal and, you know, you've won this great award, it's not for everyone. You could further your career in different ways. That's me stirring the pot now.
No, but Rosemary, I'm going to stir a little bit further. I think, and we've seen it in South Africa, suddenly there are lots and lots of awards. There isn't like one prime award. So, you know, I think sometimes more is not better. So, you know, just looking at how many awards and how serious is the process for some of the awards, you know, I think sometimes that also influences how it's perceived.
I think
No, you go ahead.
I was just saying, you definitely touched on something there, Rosemary. 100%.
Yeah, so I do think it is, in general, it is such a positive thing for people. And, you know, there isn't an awards in Scotland that has various categories or has been produced to what I would consider a nice professional standard for the profession. So, you know, a standalone awards is really important, but there's a lot that goes behind it in terms of months and months of work, the judging process. You know, obviously budgets are finite, but what we do get in sponsorship will go straight back in to make sure that it is a dedicated event with, you know, the bells and whistles where we can afford to get those on board, whether it's, you know, a nice stage set or, you know, good judges, all of that. It's a long process, and it takes the best part of at least half of the year anyway.
I mean, you know, obviously I've won a couple of awards in my career. And, you know, they were lovely, but I'd already achieved the big things to get those awards anyway. So I didn't have expectations that winning an award was going to suddenly change my life. That wasn't it. I took it for what it was, which was to celebrate what I'd already achieved. And, you know, I remember a PA saying to me again pre-COVID about an award she made the final 5 for. And then she said to me sort of 6 months afterwards, I didn't get anything out of that. Well, I'm not really sure what people would expect to get out of it, because it's down to the individual who wins or who the runner-up or how they want to leverage that. And some people don't. They're quite, you know, just happy to quietly take that award, celebrate with their family and friends. And pat themselves on the back and reflect how damn hard they've worked to get there.
Yeah,
But
and that's
also, sorry, Rosemary.
you carry on.
No, I was going to say, I think if that's the mindset, your mindset should be, you have to be an ambassador for the profession. By virtue of winning this award, I need to do something good for my people this year. And I think if you have that mindset, more good things come. But if you think this is just a trophy in my trophy case and suddenly things are just going to magically fall into my lap, I think that's also a misperception.
Mm.
Oh, hang on, I've lost my train of thought there.
No, well, there's so much to pack into the awards section. We've got some fantastic awards in the UK, perhaps a little too many in some sections. I don't know, that's up to PAs themselves, but I think with we'd have this discussion at Hayes every year because it was a massive investment getting in partnership with the Times, and it's not one you take lightly. So we'd have to look at, it's not only what was Hayes getting out of it, but what were these winners? How much was it really going to change apart? Well, most of the perception more widely of PAs, because obviously that article of the winner would be printed in the national press, and that paper would be on sale I think the Creme supplement was every Wednesday, and you kind of rush out. I've been in the Creme, not as a winner, but they did profiled me and my boss at the time, and yeah, you kind of do have to look at all those aspects rather than just saying, let's put on an awards, it's lovely, it's nice, everybody will have a good night and we'll make a couple of people feel really good. It's the what else? There has to be something else kind of packed in, if that makes sense.
Equally, I think if it's not for everyone, the awards, by changing the format of our awards next year to more of a celebration, someone could come along and just meet their colleagues and network, but not necessarily have the pressure of thinking I'm a finalist.
Yeah,
and it's so needed right now, Rosemary. I think people really are craving getting back to face. People really want to be reconnected with their peer groups. So I think that definitely is something that I think a lot of people are looking forward to and looking for more in those kinds of engagements.
And it's important because by using a new celebration format, it keeps the costs down. So, I'm really very conscious of people's expenses, especially after the last few years. So people maybe don't want to pay a huge price for a dinner, but actually with this, it will be very affordable. I think we're looking at £35 plus VAT. So it won't be inaccessible.
Yeah,
it's not going to be twice the price or 3 times the price. So
I think that's amazing, and that's an amazing, because you wouldn't get any awards.
Sounds good to me too.
And given we have a recession coming up, the dreaded R word, I think that's the theme for next year, is keeping things accessible for people. And whilst we continue to navigate through that, whatever that looks like for the PA profession, we won't fully know until we get a bit closer to the time. But what I will
also maximum value for the money spent.
Yes, yeah, ROI is going to be.
I think that's a focus.
Yeah, it has to be next year. But what I will say, and the reason I wanted you to come on, is because a lot of people know your name, they've seen your photo, but I don't think a lot of people have really understood your backstory, which is absolutely, I mean, you've had an incredibly interesting life, not just professionally, but all that kind of moving around in childhood and experiencing other cultures and in countries, and then going into production, being a PA, going into the hotel world, and then setting up this network off your own back. And it is blood, sweat and tears setting up, I know, because of EPAA, literally, the sweat is pouring out of me. Joking, but it is hard work, and I want PAs to understand that it's not that we're out there with a sympathy bucket, but to understand the stories of the people behind these networks, these organizations, and that we absolutely love it, but there's there is a backstory to it. There is some labor, there is hard work, there's personal financial investment into that at the beginning. And I know you're someone who much prefers being behind the scenes. You drive all around Scotland to host events, service your members, and work with your sponsors and suppliers, and you work really, really hard at that. And I wanted people to have an opportunity to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't know what else to say. You've kind of like taken the wind out of me now. I was like, oh, Mum, this is your life or something.
Yeah,
but
it's a bit like that, isn't it? Because you've deliberately kept yourself behind the scenes with this network. I know they all know you up there when they come to the events, but you haven't been, I don't even know how to put it right, but you've always just been really somebody who's all constantly on the detail, keeping things up to date and ticking along. And I've listened from a personal perspective. I've known you a long time. I don't think you've had enough credit for what you've done for our profession. So I just wanted the opportunity to say thank you.
Oh, thank you, Vic. And I do appreciate that very, very much.
And we really love your work. We really love your work.
Yeah. Oh, now you're still taking the wind out of my sails saying these things.
We would have tried saying thank you in a Scottish accent, but as you
No.
know, Scottish accent.
No, I'm not going to kill that. I'm not going to kill that.
I still want to be friends with the Scottish PAs when I come up, you know.
There we go. Good to have a wonderful chat. I think what struck me most was the entire journey, you know, how certain puzzle pieces fit together to get you to where you are today. And every time we interview somebody, I'm always amazed by how unique those puzzle pieces are. And so many things I didn't know about you. And I've also known you for a few years. So thanks for joining us. Thank you for sharing what you do. It really has been a privilege chatting to you.
Thank you so much. And now the next thing I have to do is get you both to Scotland so you can have some nice Scottish hospitality and come and meet the PAs up here.
I'll never say
Can't wait to come back.
Never say no.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining this episode of the Assistant Lab. If you enjoyed this content, you know what you need to do. Feel free to share it and help us grow our subscriber base.
Join us again next time. And until then, keep experimenting, innovating, and improving your skill set.